Gang, what's up? Aaron here, Canadian Looney. Earlier, we watched Vasi Capellos rip our Public Safety Minister Gary Anandasangaree to shreds. The Tiger got put down by Vasi. Good on you, Vasi. First time I've seen you whip out the journalism skills in a long time. Now he's jumping over to CBC. Let's see how it goes. Is CBC going to treat him any better, any worse? I'm guessing it's going to be a cakewalk for Gary. Maybe not. Vasi surprised me there. Let's see what the CBC can do. Let's take a look and a listen. This foolish pow buyback that's going on is ridiculous in the first place. Anyhow, let's see if CBC takes it any easier on Gary. Man, oh man, I wouldn't take it easy on him. Let's go. Let's see what CBC will put on our plate. Let's take a look.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
The federal government is kickstarting its long-awaited gun buyback program. After first banning 2,500 assault-style rifles back in 2020, a pilot program for individuals in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia will begin on October 1st. The government estimates there's about 180,000 firearms that need to be collected across the country, with the budget for the program capped at $742 million. This rollout comes as Canada's Public Safety Minister is in hot water after a conversation he had with his tenant was leaked. CBC has verified the audio. The minister tells his tenant, a gun owner, he would have a very different approach if he could start over from scratch. He also offered to compensate his tenant if the government's buyback for his now banned guns wasn't enough, something opposition parties seized on.
Just get into the interview. Come on.
For being here today.
On Monday, a minister says that his program won't work. On Tuesday, he says he's going ahead with the program.
Frankly, it was shocking to see the minister responsible for implementing the gun buyback program essentially say that it can't work.
When will the Prime Minister fire this minister?
Gary Anandasangaree is the Minister of Public Safety, and he joins me now. Hi,
Gary.
Minister. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming in today.
Nice to be here, JP.
I want to start with that tape conversation that was subsequently leaked to the press. You say in that tape that the municipal police in this country do not have enough resources to enforce this firearms ban that has been in place for some time. Why are you going ahead with a buyback program if the police are not equipped to actually carry out any sort of enforcement of this ban?
So let me just contextualize this first of all. So there is a recording that was done on Sunday. It was subsequently leaked to a gun lobby advocate, and in it, a number of things were said. You can understand it was a private conversation between two individuals that have known each other for many years. There are a couple of issues that I want to address at the outset. So first and foremost, there's two things that I said. One was regarding compensation, the other was around bail. It was said in jest. It was said in the context of two individuals having a conversation about a very sensitive issue that I know was important to the individual I was speaking to. Secondly, I said I talked about this issue proactively because we were going to implement the program. The program was coming forward on Tuesday, and on Sunday I was advising someone I knew who was very concerned about firearms, about the program that we're rolling out. I have said that I would have done this differently, and I still stand by it. I think if I were to redo this from the beginning, we could have done this differently. The fact is that many elements of it was done along the way. So my preference would have been to do it earlier, not to cause some confusion. There's 3 different orders in council. I would have preferred to do it as a one-shot order in council that would encapsulate all 2,500 firearms. So a number of things were said, I think, have been taken out of context. But the clear point for me is that I've always believed in this program. I ran on this program. I have, for many years, supported guns off our streets, and this is an important testament to that, the fact that we announced the pilot in Cape Breton today.
I appreciate that you're raising this idea that you would start from scratch, because that is what you said on the tape, that you would not necessarily have pursued things as they are unfolding now. And it wasn't necessarily about the timeline that you were talking about. I understand that's your explanation for those remarks now, but you were saying in this conversation with your tenant that if you could redo things from the beginning, you would consider increasing penalties for people who have illegal and, unlicensed firearms, that sort of range of things. So you were actually talking about stiffer criminal sanctions for people who are unlicensed, not necessarily a timeline, as you're now saying today. It
is both.
What minister should we believe, though, frankly, sir? Because we're hearing you speak quite frankly and honestly, seemingly honestly, to your tenant, and then we're hearing a different tune today. Just help our audience understand, what do you genuinely believe?
I'm saying the same thing today, JP. So first of all, I do believe that I would have done this differently. Every minister has a different.
It's not even close to the same thing, Gary. Come on. I hope this CBC hack reporter goes for Gary's jugular. Come on.
Different approach. Every journalist has a different approach to covering a story. So I would have done this differently. Part of it is the timing. Part of it is some of the confusion that people may have had. But ultimately, I think we're in a clear, at this point, we're clear in terms of where we're going. In terms of issues around penalty, so this is one of 4 different things that we're doing. In December, we've invested $1.3 billion at the border, increasing surveillance, increasing capacity, making sure that we have Black Hawk helicopters, we have drone capabilities, and we have a range of new tools for law enforcement at the border to stop things such as fentanyl and guns, and that is something we've already done. We committed to hiring 1,000 new RCMP and CBSA officers that we anticipate we will do once the budget is done. And the third element is what Sean Fraser is working on, which is criminal justice reform, which is what I alluded to in on that discussion, which is about making sure that criminal, violent, repeat offenders have stricter bail and also stricter sentences. And that's the type of work that Minister Fraser is doing. So it is a comprehensive approach to guns, not just a one-off buyback alone. It is a combination of all these 4 items that I think will make sure our streets are safer.
I want to ask you about that compensation comment that you referenced as well, because when you were speaking with your tenant, you said if he was not satisfied with the amount of money he would get through the buyback program for his firearms, that you would be willing to compensate him personally to kind of make him whole in terms of how much he paid versus how much he's getting from the federal government. You said, in your case, what are your losses? You tell me, I'll compensate you. Was that the right thing to say?
No,
it
was the wrong thing to say. It was the wrong thing to say. It was said in jest. It was said in a private conversation between 2 individuals that know each other. Like, the broader issue here is the compensation that's available to Canadians.
It's insufficient for some, I guess, and you're willing to top it up.
Well, I think he was making the point it was insufficient. So my point right now is that as we roll this out, we have the numbers that we have come up with per each of the items is based on evidence and based on advice that we receive from experts. So when you buy a brand new car and you turn in a car that's, say 3 years old, you're not going to get the same amount of money for the same car. Similar principle applies here.
You mentioned to Quebec, when he's pressing you in the audio, why are you going ahead with this? And you essentially say, well, Quebec's a very different place, and that the electorate there expects this government to deliver on the firearms commitment. Do you genuinely believe in this program, or is this just about satisfying voters in Quebec, as you suggested in your call with the tenant?
So, again, relating to Quebec, it is about the number of incidents that have happened, mass casualty incidents that took place in Quebec. Quebec City mosque shooting was several years ago. We were all, I was in politics when that took place. The Dawson attack, assault, and a number of people died there. We saw what an impact it had on Quebecers. And of course, L'École Polytechnique, today Nathalie Provost, the Minister of Nature, Secretary of State for Nature, spoke about that and how personally she's been impacted by it. So it is a heightened sense of alert in Quebec over guns. People are very much impacted by what happened to them, what happened to their communities, how ripped apart they felt, and for folks, for example, who survived L'École Polytechnique, this has been a 36-year battle that finally, I think, has come to fruition. So it is not in the context of politics; it's in the context of this is the expectation, heightened level of expectation in Quebec, but it's by no means just Quebec. We know that the Danforth shooting took place. Look, I've worked with many youths over the years. I've lost, at least 5 or 6 young people to gun violence, and this is something that we're all impacted by. And this program that we are launching today, the pilot, I believe will help get items such as AR-15s off our streets.
I want to ask you about firearms and firearm crime, because really when you look at some of the statistics from police, it suggests that most of the guns used in the commission of a crime in this country don't come from legal firearms owners in this country, they come from the United States. I was looking at some of the data, the Toronto Police Service very helpfully supplied some. 90% of the guns that they take off the streets as part of a sweep when it comes to a crime come from the United States. Illegal firearms from the Americans. Why crack down on legal firearms owners who arguably go through very stringent requirements to get licensed and then have to follow a bunch of paperwork and regulations and what have you? Why go after them and not pour the $742 million you've allocated for this gun buyback program into beefing up the things that are happening at the border to stop what is really the main source of crime guns in this country?
JP, I've outlined the other efforts we're making on firearms, including additional resources at the border, additional RCMP, CBC officers, the changes we're making to
but is it public money well spent?
Record.
You know, we obviously are in a finite budget situation. You're about to cut across the board some 15% if the Prime Minister gets his way. $742 million that is going to be spent on this buyback program. Couldn't you deploy that to other areas, including cracking down on where the guns are actually coming from, where these crime guns are sourced, the United States? Like, I think in this era where money is tight, does it make sense to expend this sort of money and police people who are not largely responsible for the gun crimes that we're seeing?
Let's be clear. The funds that are being allocated for this is from previous budgets. So the final tranche of it was from the fall economic statement in 2024. There are roughly between 80 to 90,000 AR-15s in communities. I'm not so sure that that's the appropriate type of firearms to be held in community. I don't think they should be allowed in Canada. That's why we banned it. That's why we are compensating people for taking them off their shelves. We want to. It's a goodwill gesture to make sure that people comply. AR-15s have had lethal consequences in Canada. It's been used in a number of shootings. The mass casualty report in Nova Scotia has recommended that we have restrictions in place for semi-automatics such as the AR-15. At this point, it is the right thing to do in culmination with the other efforts that we're making.
I just want to circle back to the first question I asked you about municipal police. I take your explanation off the top, but you didn't quite answer that question. When you say on that recording that the municipal police in this country don't have the resources to actually follow through on policing these firearms that are now banned, are you confident they'll be able to do the job? Or, as you said, they're not going to have the resources? I know municipal police, I just don't think municipal police services have the resources to do this.
Again, if you look at the whole transcript, it is in the context of a scenario that individual presented to me, which would be
extreme example,
which be
perhaps.
extreme, high risk, in a residential neighborhood, a range of issues where in order to ensure enforcement of that would take enormous resources. What is clear to me, though, is that Canadians are law-abiding. They will comply with the law. Municipal police forces each and every day make sure that Canadians are safe. They implement the criminal code on a range of issues, tens and thousands of issues a day. This is one of those issues where they will have to address it, and it'll be on a case-by-case basis. But in a general sense, when we talk about firearms, oftentimes when somebody passes away, there's maybe some kind of a return of the firearm or surrender to police. It may be found in a context of another law enforcement activity. It may be in the context of a raid. It may be in a range of contexts. So in the scenario presented, that would be hard if that is the type of incident we're looking at. But in a much broader sense, law enforcement have always been able to do their work, and I have every confidence that they will.
Some law enforcement, though, are not willing to play ball. We know that the Ontario Provincial Police say they will not participate in this program. They won't facilitate federal efforts to collect these firearms. Are you worried that that's going to be a pattern you see across the country? It's one thing to have the program. You also need law enforcement partners to actually help collect these guns and bring them in. Sure.
And there's two elements here. One is the enforcement of the criminal code, which nobody has said they're not going to enforce. This is part of the actual program itself where they're collecting the firearms. OPP, and I respect their decision. They are not willing to participate. We have 3 different options for collection. One is through police of jurisdiction. That's what we're doing in Cape Breton, and we will do that in many other jurisdictions. We will also have it.
Is he going to say send in Canada Post? I got a feeling he might. Who knows? Gary's ridiculous, right?
Available in a mobile pickup possibility, and we may be able to deploy other sources for the collection. So I'm very confident that we can roll it out.
How abstract is that? Other sources for the collection. Give me a break, Gary. Stick a fork in you,
And finally,
chipmunk.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says that you should be fired from your job. Is it your intention to stay on as the public safety minister, given all that you've been through over the last 48 hours?
When we were going to launch this on Tuesday, I knew for many weeks before that this will not be popular in some circles, but it will be very much welcomed by the vast majority of Canadians. This has become a political issue for the Conservative Party. I regret that, and I don't think they should make this a political issue. I also know that there's a pretty large lobby that is supported.
Don't make this a political issue. My goodness, these liberals, man, so woke and full of it. It's hard to take.
Both in Canada and south of the border that are looking to derail this program, derail the announcement that I made today with my colleagues. And as a result, for example, the audio was leaked. But I'm resolved to do my job. This is what I've been tasked by the Prime Minister. This is the type of support that I've received from my caucus colleagues, as well as many other Canadians. So I'm absolutely resolved to ensure that I implement this program, start with the pilot and expand it across Canada.
You're not going anywhere.
I'm here.
All right. Thank you so much. Public Safety Minister Gary Anandasangaree, appreciate you coming on.
God damn it, that's not news! What about us?
God help us, gang. Gary Anandasangaree, get lost. Go back to Bangladesh, sign up with the Tigers, whatever. Get the hell out of Parliament. You're a bum. Kid on CBC did all right there. He wasn't lighting up Gary the same way that Vassy did. But, you know, the bosses at CBC probably are higher paid than CTV. Who knows? Aaron Canadian Looney, there's so much foolishness going on in Canadian federal politics. It's going to get worse before it gets better, if it can ever get better. We'll have to wait and see. That's it. We're going to run for now. Thank you for watching the video. We'll catch you in the next one. What a gong show is going on in the House of Commons in Parliament. Catch you in the next video.